Our host, the world-renowned Christine Enville, an IFBB professional, 3 times world champion, a mentor, an icon, and of course, a founding co-owner of the best supplements money can buy, International Protein. We're right in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, so in this podcast, we'll explore how to maintain muscle mass while only doing home exercises. How are we going to adapt to our workouts, the mental challenges, and the derailing from our routine? All right, Chris. So anyone that's been training, anybody that's been lifting or bodybuilding or any of those sorts of things, like amidst coronavirus 2020, we're in April right now, we're right in the heat of things where everyone's in lockdown, or at least they're not allowed to go to the gym, or the gyms are closed. So there's a few questions on a few people's minds. You being the experienced person in this industry, it would be really great to get your advice on how to maintain muscle mass while only doing home workouts. So, for our listeners, where do we go from here?
Okay, I think the main thing is that you keep a routine, that if you used to train for an hour and a half a day, you may find that really difficult with limited equipment, but I think you need to really change up what you're doing. So you might not be able to do the variety that you were doing, but you probably need to still stimulate the muscle as much as what you can. So that's probably the most important part, that you don't just drop your training. And funnily enough, I actually had one of my athletes message me today and they said, I've got like a bar and this and I'm really not enjoying doing it because I can't do what I normally do. And my response was, you need to really find the stuff that you do love. You need to approach it differently mentally, because if you don't keep on training, you are going to lose the muscle mass. Like, simple as that. You don't train, you are going to lose that muscle mass. So don't just put it aside because it's not the perfect situation. Like, it won't always be the perfect situation. And that also brings it back to, when you're competing, it's not always easy. You don't always have energy. You don't always want to train, but you still go and you push through and you train. So I think you really need to still do some work. Like, even if you're doing your whole body in that workout because you want to take up that period of time, you want to fill that time in your day, keep doing that. Or conversely, shorten it down and, think of other things that you can do. But if you need to keep that muscle mass, you still got to keep on stimulating the muscle to some degree. But I want to say, don't get hung up on it. If you're going to lose some muscle mass, which this is an extraordinary time, it's going to bounce back. That's probably like anyone who's had an injury knows that you bounce back. So don't try to get hung up on the fact that you need to gain muscle at this point in time. I think it's about maintenance. I think it's about mental maintenance, physical maintenance, sticking on your diet, and really just knowing that in a month's time or 2 months' time when you're back in the gym, it's going to come back in no time. I think that's probably the crux of this. Change your mindset from I must grow this muscle, I must do this, I must do that, and think about, okay, it's a different phase, it's maintenance, and doing something is better than doing nothing. So you've got to keep in that kind of routine, but be prepared for the fact that your body is going to change, but it's only temporary.
Yeah, and so it's a period of adapting to the moment, and you might not have all the weights that you and equipment that you generally use, so you've now got to do exercises that revolve around the body weight.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of advice on that?
Yeah, a lot of muscle recognizes stress. Okay, it doesn't recognize absolute weight, and whilst obviously weight is very important to muscle growth, what you can do is you can look at changing up your rep speed, your tempo, and what you've actually been doing, adding in isometric contractions. So you're not just doing a basic lift, negative and a positive. You can do a lot more at the top of the movement, squeezing that contraction, holding it for 2-3 seconds, taking 3 to 6 seconds to do a negative or a positive, and you're going to stress your muscle an awful lot with a lot less weight than what you're used to doing. So think about it as an opportunity to be creative, and that's why that hour and a half workout where you used to do maybe 6 exercises of 4 sets, if you're doing a lot of different rep speeds and different rep ranges, you may only need 3 exercises, and you're going to find that actually takes a really long time. So look at it differently. Don't just think that what you were doing in the gym when you had all of that equipment available to you can work when you don't have that. You've got to look at other ways. You've got to look at ways of fatiguing yourself. And one of the simplest ones really is that rep speed. The difference that it makes on the muscle and the different feel that you'll get when you're slowing it down and having to really concentrate and focus, you might even find that you fail a lot sooner than what you would on just doing a normal 10 rep set. So try things out, like use this as a time now to maybe try things out that you didn't do before. Like for example, thinking about when you're contracting like something like a chest press. A lot of people really only contract their muscle at the top of the movement. Like they'll press and they'll squeeze as they get to the top, but when you're doing anything, you really should be trying to get that muscle to pre-contract before you've even or just as you're starting the rep. So when you're going heavy and you've got a lot of heavy weight at your disposal, a lot of people don't even bother to do that. Just pretty much bang in. They want to get those reps out. They want to go up. They want to think about their PBs and all that kind of stuff. But that's really not the essence of what growing muscle is all about, or stimulating muscle. So if you think about a leg extension, you can, even without any weight, even though I think people can sit on a chair, put something on their feet and do something for leg extension, or if you've got bands, you can use that as a resistance. But if you were to concentrate on like contracting your leg even before you started that movement, and then as you raise your foot up, keep that contraction, you'll be surprised how different that feels to if you're just swinging your leg. So really connect with your body, like really start to take that time, and also because you're probably on your own, you're not maybe in a gym full of people, and really kind of learn to connect with the muscle group and do different things and see how it feels. Try different things, knowing that you're not just resorting to weights. I think it's a time to be more creative and learn your body a little bit more too.
Yeah, so would you say that, the heavier, this is probably obvious, but I'm guessing that your ego ain't your amigo. And this is actually an opportunity, as you said, to really try changing your technique. And would you say that there's actually an opportunity long-term to get better results?
Absolutely. And this is something where people who are probably hitting their, maybe early 30s and then going into their late 30s, where you'll find when you're very young, you can punish your body, you can do very heavy weights, nothing's going to break, nothing feels like it's going to snap or break, and then all of a sudden you hit a certain age and you realize that you're a little more fragile than what you used to be, and you can't do the kind of weights that you used to do, or you get an injury, whether it be in the gym or outside of the gym, and you can't do the kind of weight that you used to do. So ultimately you are going to have to adapt your training style at some point. And a lot of people that I've known over the years have said, actually one person in particular, I'm going to do a bit of a call out here that I don't know where they're living at the moment, but there was a bodybuilder called Neil Gardner, and I think a lot of people will remember Neil. And way back when I was first competing, I remember Neil doing the under 65s, moving up into the under 70 kilo section, and he was shorter than me, so that's actually pretty heavy weight for him to be competing in that. And he had amazing legs. Like, this guy was known for his legs. Can't remember how the conversation went, but he basically said that he had really bad legs until he got an injury, and then he had to change how he trained. So he wasn't able to go as heavy as what he used to go, and developed the most incredibly shaped, carved out set of legs that was competing at the time. So that told me, way back then, that it's not always all about the weight, it's about the stimulation that you give to the muscle. And he'd had to get creative because of the injury that he had, and couldn't just go out and slam out a lot of heavy squats and think that he was going to get the best legs possible. Another example is Brandon Ray, international protein sponsored athlete, and he always talks about, or even when I met him, his back was probably his weakest point. Now it's his absolute strongest point. Does he go really heavy on back? Absolutely not. Are his workouts hard on back? They are probably the most grueling workouts that I have ever done when I train with him for back. And the reason that is that the contraction and the concentration that goes into doing those reps, it's just total mind muscle connection. It's total you could just the speed of the rep is not fast, and he's just contracting the whole way from the very, very start of the rep. And I've trained that style with other people, and they've basically mentally fatigued in the middle of sets. Like, they have not been able to finish. They've just kind of on a half of the weight that they normally were doing, have not been able to complete a set. And that is truly connecting and truly activating your muscles. So that's just a couple of examples. And I know that there's a lot of people that train super heavy. There's a lot of people that do try different ways. Because I'm not saying that heavy weight isn't necessary to grow, and you will get a certain result with that. But what you will find is you generally develop a slightly imbalanced physique, because if you focus on the weight and you focus on only being strong, your body and your mind tells you to get that weight up at any cost, and you start to lose focus on what muscle should actually be doing that exercise. And I'm kind of bringing this back to how Brandon started to develop his back. He used to go super heavy on things like barbell rows, bent over rows, and then he wondered, why is my back not getting any bigger? I'm as strong as Dory and I'm doing all this weight. And he kind of realized that whilst he was moving that weight, he wasn't actually contracting his back. And anyone who weight trains, or if you weight train and you don't know this is the time to go back and kind of start connecting. But there is a difference between pushing a weight and connecting with a weight and connecting with your muscle when you train. So that's why absolutely I believe that it's more about stimulating the muscle and really getting it to work. And I might as well kind of explain why I believe that is the case. Is when you think about your muscle, you think of a tree and you think about like the rings around a tree and how a tree is made up of, like, it seems like you imagine your muscle is all like these layers and layers and layers of fibers kind of like going in to make a cylindrical object, which I guess most muscles essentially are.
Yeah.
And when you first start to contract and you do 3 reps, you might stimulate the outer circumference of that muscle. And then as the reps go on and you go to like up to 6 reps, you start to stimulate deeper and deeper into that muscle. So if you're going super heavy and you're doing like 4 or 6 reps, you stimulate certain certain amount of the muscle. And what does muscle need to grow? It needs stimulation. So you're doing like that 20% of the edge of your muscle. Then you do your next set and you penetrate a little further, because basically the muscle, what started contracting, fatigues, and then it has to make more of the muscle contract. So if you're just doing like a shorter period of very heavy, whilst it's stimulating the muscle, it's stimulating say 20% of your entire muscle belly. And you need to do something which takes it through to 60%, 80%, 100%, like to actually stimulate every single muscle fiber inside of each muscle. And that is going to give you greater muscle growth. You kind of think of like it's not like when you contract your muscle that 100% of every fiber contracts every single rep. It doesn't work like that.
It's fascinating.
So you need to really drive that stimulation through the muscle, and that's why people now are using different techniques, which that term time under tension comes in, because it's literally giving your body that time for everything to fire and get stimulated equally. So it's like you can stimulate the same muscle fibers continually, but there's a whole bunch of more muscle fibers in that muscle that just aren't getting that same degree of stimulation.
You talked about the mental side of it as well before. Obviously, in this pandemic that we're in the middle of, obviously, people will stress eat. People will do those sorts of things. They'll get out of their routine. And in this kind of sport, obviously routine is everything. It's about waking up early, it's sticking to your schedule, those sorts of things. So what advice have you got for people that may have just derailed slightly and just need to get back on track? Or can you sort of relate to this a little bit? Perhaps it's an event in the past that derailed you. And did you have any sort of tools that you're able to pull out of your toolkit to get you back on track?
Oh, that's a tough one, because I don't derail too often at all, and that it is mostly because I kind of I do try to cling to routine, and I think that is the crux of it. Like we live by routine, and that's why I think I stressed at the start, even if you're not growing muscle, still keep that routine, still keep that semblance of the routine, because it's part of what makes up your day. And I know, and in fact I know myself, actually, if I do stray from my routine, that is when I probably do tend to do everything off par, and I'll eat more than I think, or not sleep properly, or do all those kind of things. So as far as tools to keep on, it's always thinking past the point, like what's in front of this. Like now, gyms aren't going to be closed forever. There's an end to it in sight. And for example, the number of new cases is coming down, now. So there is like an end in sight for everyone, and you don't want it to be really, really hard to get back into it once it's over. So you want to just be, it's like there's this big block in the middle, which is kind of like this big dark patch, but there's a big light spot at the end that has your gym, has your routine, has you looking how you want to look, and you just want to get to that. So you need to really stay focused on holding onto your structure, because really your routine's your framework. It's your your ladder rungs, or it's whatever it is that holds you steady. So keeping that, even if it's a paler version of what you normally do, keeping it, you're going to feel better, and that's the thing. Like all of us who do bodybuilding and who get into the weights and who follow a really good diet, we all feel better when we're following that diet. So you kind of know that if you spiral off, you're probably going to end up feeling worse for not doing it. So I guess you need to kind of make a deal with yourself, like show yourself the reason why it's good to stick to that. And because I'm probably always more on the side of following my routine than not following my routine, I have a couple of things. One is, don't beat myself up if I do fall off of it. Okay, like diet is a great example. You're dieting along for comp, you I don't know, for whatever reason you eat something that you're really not supposed to, and then I know so many people that just go, I'm just going to eat whatever I want for the rest of today, and then tomorrow I'll get back on my diet. Why do you need to do that? You had one stuff up, next meal you know what you're going to have, just get straight back on straight away. If you let that happen, then the next day and the next day and next day becomes more of a habit, or becomes more of the norm. It takes a lot of mental strength, but I think that thing is and a lot of that comes from the fact that you're actually really angry at yourself for doing that, and you're disappointed at yourself, and you kind of, all of those emotions that come up. But if you kind of are a little bit more flexible with yourself and kind of go, hey, yep, made a mistake, but it's not the end of the world. We can keep on this, and by tomorrow we won't even know that I ate that chocolate or whatever you particularly did. So I think it's that sticking to your routine, but not really beating yourself up if you don't follow the routine. And I think that's probably with the training. A lot of people are kind of beating themselves up because they're not able to do the leg workout that they normally do. They're not able to do what they normally do, and they're kind of like obsessing over that rather than looking at what they can do. Like, I'm always the person looking on the bright side of something rather than the negative side of something. It always could be worse. It always could be worse. So don't beat yourself up. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? That looking at that kind of thing is keeping things in perspective and knowing that it's not going to, the world is not going to come crashing down if I break and eat something wrong on this meal or miss this thing. But don't let that become the habit. Like, because you have your structure, even if it means you write it down. Like, normally you keep it in your head, you know what you're doing. Remember when you first started and you used to maybe keep a training diary, or you used to keep a log or a diary of what you had to do. So maybe go back to that. Like, maybe write it down and keep yourself accountable that I'm going to do this at this time, and I'm going to eat at that time and eat that kind of food, and look at it from that point of view. As I said, it's a tricky one for me, because I do tend to be very positive. Like, I remember I tore my tricep 4 weeks out from my sort of comeback show, and it bothered me that I was so close to my show, and that I had kind of been told I really shouldn't be training that particular day, and I did, and all that kind of stuff. But at no point did I think that I wasn't going to get that fixed, and at no point did I think that I wasn't going to be back training. And I did what I could. Like, I really kept a certain routine. I still went to the gym. I couldn't really do much at all, but I got as light dumbbells and did 100 reps and did all kinds of things just to keep active. But I kept that routine. I didn't kind of go, oh well, I'm injured and I can't train and I'm just going to sit at home and do nothing. I just kept my day as much normal as possible. Consciously reduced the food that I was eating, because I knew that I wasn't burning as many calories, and treated it like getting ready for a comp. Like, okay, I'm going to go through 12 weeks of this until I can start doing proper training. I'm going to be able to introduce certain kind of movements at a certain period of time. But I think out of anyone, people who do weight training and bodybuilding, all that kind of stuff, generally do have more discipline. So we have every advantage to be on top of this and to stay mentally on top of this, because we're mentally, the things that we push through getting ready for comp, to me, you just start to apply those same techniques that get you to stage when you got to wake up early, go do fasted cardio, you really don't feel like it, you're on low carbs or low calories, and you've got to deal with different things, and you find a way of pushing through. I think look at what tools you have in your arsenal for competition and stuff, and then apply that to this situation now.
So all in all, this is a real mental game right now. So you've got to control the mind and just get back on track. But at the same time, it's also an opportunity to try something new. And am I right in saying that the body needs change? So therefore, to cycle in and out of something a little bit different is actually really, really healthy for you?
Absolutely. Like, there's two sides to that, I guess. Like, routine is that structure. So on one side I'm saying like, you know, cling to that routine, but then what you do within that on an individual, like, you know, event by event is definitely like, it's good. Think about your training as well. When you do it, you might do chest workout, you don't always do the same exercises. You do mix it up in terms of what you're actually doing. But, you know, that opportunity to either learn something new, let your body learn something new, expose your body to something new, like, because you might find that does really, really work for you. On the flip side, you may also find what doesn't work for you. Like, you might try a few different things here, like you might try super high reps with a light weight, and you might be like, oh my goodness, I just realized that I got a lot more definition. Or you might realize that was not the way that I wanted to go. Like, that's really made me totally shrink, because everyone is different genetically. But I think from anything to keep mental freshness, it is always like, it's not about trying something new for the sake of trying something new. It's for the sake of growth. Like, and I'm not talking like muscular growth. I'm talking about like mental growth. I'm talking about growing as a person. That sometimes, you know, and again, I was saying about, it's that opportunity when you're in the gym, you're used to going heavy, start to try to like experience what it's like to feel that contraction from the start of the movement right all the way through. So this is the opportunity where, you know, again, different activities, the only activity you might be able to do is bike riding, and you might never have bike ridden before, and you might find that that's actually really cool. And that's like me and what I do in bodybuilding for so many years, and cardio was walking. And I always did that, and, you know, do a few electronic pieces of equipment and go to different gyms and see different things and try different things, and then work out different ways of doing cardio to keep that more interesting. And then in later years, you know, just getting, you know, introduced to F45 through a friend who had a club, and then discovering HIIT, which, you know, HIIT was not, you know, HIIT was around when I was competing, and I never really understood it and never really did it. And now when I kind of look at the functional training and the HIIT training, I'm kind of like, oh my God, this would have made things so much easier when I was competing. Yeah. Like, you know, and I never would have, never would have come across that. So there's a hell of a lot of people doing online training, Zoom sessions, and, you know, just video classes and things like that. So, you know, if people are struggling with ideas because they are so used to doing weights, then now is a really great time to kind of like Google that and see who's offering those kind of classes. The beauty of it is, if you live in Queensland and there's someone offering a really cool class in Melbourne, you can do it.
Yeah.
You know, think about that. Like, you don't have to drive to Melbourne to do this class. You actually get that opportunity to experience something. You know, most of these people are in doing kind of weekly subscriptions, or even, I don't know, free trials like this. It's developing so quickly. Like, in the last 2 weeks, it's kind of gone from zero to, you know, everyone has an online class, and you might find something that you've never ever tried before, and you know, and realize that you actually really love it. So it's not even, you know, you might hate it and you might think, I'm never going to do that again, but you'll have that opportunity to try it because you are looking for something different. So I think from a mental point of view, if nothing else, it's going to make you really appreciate the gym and love the gym and go, oh my God, I hate everything else and I just want to do bodybuilding. But you've tried it, and you know, and I guess you can have that comparison. But at the same time, you might find that little gem of an exercise that really makes that difference to your next competition. Something that, you know, you've been struggling to bring, you know, your quads in, or struggling to bring your glutes in, and you've been doing hip thrusters till the cows come home. You've been trying everything and nothing's worked, and then you end up doing some kind of functional class or some kind of different cardio class, and you see like some cool move that someone's doing in that class, and that, you know, that makes the difference. So and again, that's probably why I don't tend to struggle with any kind of change, is because I always look at change as being something that is going to allow me to grow, allow me to try something that I really wouldn't have tried. But the thing is, you do have to go at it with an open mind.
Well, what I got from you before is, you know, you might go a little bit lighter, and you know, the good thing about that while you're doing it at home is no one's going to see you, right? so you can try these things. Let's say that is the case, and people do have to go lighter or just change the way they're doing things. Like, is there you know, you obviously run International Protein. There's different kinds of proteins out there. What about switching their proteins with home exercises? Is that a relevant topic?
Not really, because I see protein as food.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like really the underpinning, you know, we all need protein. So, and again, talking about routine, I would be sticking to my routine as much as possible. If you're having protein shake after your workout, still have your protein shake. If you're not working out, we'll still have your protein shake, but maybe just have 3/4 of the serve.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, you know, controlling calories and all that kind of thing. Or, you know, just, you know, reduce your food intake a little bit, where, like, it's not like you don't need recovery because you're not training, even if you're on reduced training, because protein isn't just about recovery, it's about basic life. Like you can live without carbohydrates, you can live without fats, but you can't live without your protein. So, your essential fats you need, but you need very, very little of those. But protein, you need that for every enzyme and metabolic process and just everything that you need. So you will die if you don't eat protein. Even if you're not doing anything, a diet that's higher in protein is still a lot healthier than one that's devoid of protein, or even that's on the 12% of calories that's kind of recommended by I actually don't even know if that still is recommended, because there was a really cool diet that came out that the CSIRO studied, where they said that 30% of calories from protein was actually the very, very healthy, and that was for people who weren't even training. So that's like more than double what the recommended amount was at the time. So I don't know whether the world's caught up and done that, but definitely that need for protein, it's needed whether you're training or not. Obviously, when you train, you need a lot more, but they still say that a much healthier and healthier way to maintain weight is by having a higher amount of protein. So it's going to help even on reduced things. So as far as different types of protein, again,
can't believe you didn't turn your phone off in the middle of a podcast, Christine.
It's off.
Oh, it is off.
How
does that work?
I have only 2 people who have if it's like potentially emergency, and one of them is my PA. So
Okay.
Romy's allowed to message us at any time, which means I better check in case it's something important.
All right. Well, while you're checking, we've got, this is an awesome podcast. Love it. While we're checking, just so we can wrap this up, what are your favourite home exercises or most effective for you that you've implemented? Now, I know you've probably been sneaking off to the gym, but let's not say that, because that's not the right thing to do. So, what little gems can you give people?
I actually haven't been sneaking off to the gym.
Good on you.
And I did find my old pump-up straps that I had from backstage. So I have managed to do quite a few different things with the pump-up straps.
Yep.
I did also find my mini carry-on. I have a bigger and a smaller carry-on, but I found that my carry-on filled up with all kind of books and things was actually very cool. Made like a sandbag, but a hard sandbag kind of thing for doing all kinds of weighted, what would normally be a goblet squat or something like that. But there's push-ups, believe it or not. I used to really underrate those when I was weight training, because I'm like,
elbows in or elbows out?
Any kind. If hands together to hit more of the tricep, going wider to hit more of the chest, mixing it up, doing different angular ones. Like, you can do so much with a push-up. And this is, that's obviously why that's one of my favorite ones, because it's working delts and it's working chest, and your back's having to support, and its core is engaged. I'm assuming that people are doing it with not on their knees, because there's not a lot of core engagement on your knees, but there's definitely a lot when you're doing regular push-ups. So that is obviously one which people can do pretty much anywhere, even different angles, and try to add claps in, and goodness knows what. I think there was even a 20 push-up challenge that was going around on Instagram at one stage, which I didn't publish, but I did do with some friends.
There really should be an international protein challenge of something like that. We should throw something out there at some stage. Anyway,
I think we should.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is a really, really good one. Jump squats.
Okay.
My goodness, if someone wants a pump in their quads and they're ready for some real pain, try jump squat. You can do like regular squats, you can put booty bands on, and you can do all that kind of stuff, and you can even do goblet squats, but just adding that explosive dynamic jump, I tell you what, and don't just...
You'll feel it the next day.
Oh, you'll feel it within minutes.
Yeah.
Like, you go from nothing to like really, really pumped, and it's actually... I'll come back to the F45 more, just because I know a lot about that style of training, but I believe there's obviously a lot of different groups of doing that same kind of I guess you call it functional type training. And what I found with that was the type of exercises that they do for upper body bring a lot of the stabilizer muscles. So what I would probably suggest for people is that they actually do look up some type of online thing where they're doing something very, very similar, where they are doing a lot of burpees and push-ups and anything really which is body weighted dynamic movements. Because what I did notice when I started doing those classes, that my weights went up in the gym.
Interesting.
So I didn't change anything in the gym, and I've been, training for years, and I'm not trying to be stronger, but I did notice that my weights went up, and I believe that's a lot to do with the fact that, one, my explosiveness increased, and my stabilizer muscles got stronger. So there was more to do to lift the weight, because with weight training, and again, if people aren't focusing on that contraction through the full range, a lot of the time you're hitting a lot of the muscle, but there's a lot of muscles which are still being missed. And and then also the speed of, like, the explosiveness of is not necessarily something that people do in weight training. So you don't have to do it in weight training, but if you're doing it in another form and then you bring it into weight training, that type of strength, you'll be surprised at the results that you'll get. So if people are worried about losing strength and losing muscle size, as I said, this may be like a bit of a parking period where you might have to park the gains, or the really, really massive gains. But if you incorporate some of this type of explosive type of training, you come out the other end of this, you're going to get back in the gym, and it is going to take you a couple of weeks to get that fitness back again, but you're going to be surprised at what it's done to your overall fitness, muscular fitness, that when you do hit those weights again, you're going to explode.
So it's almost like one step back, two steps forward.
Yeah, but creating a better base to then go and bring into your weight training. Because I definitely, when I stopped training really heavily and just kind of went back to more of a, let's be fit, and obviously had a lot of injuries at the end of my career, which stopped me from doing a lot of stuff, I had lost quite a bit of upper body size, and I know from doing the F45 combined with the weights that I've definitely thickened up through my back and my delts and chest and everything. And I can't attribute that to the weights alone, because I was already doing that. So the only thing that changed was really a lot of these explosive movements. So something like battle ropes is probably going to be hard to do unless you actually have a set of battle ropes right now. But this is like, again, moving forward, I see a few bodybuilders using those, but they are an incredible, like, upper body type of exercise. But coming back to what you can do, those calisthenic type movements where you are doing a lot of explosive pushing, and the burpees are one of those kind of things, and that giving you that real kind of power explosion. And even just getting whatever you've got around the house, if you don't have a heavy weight, and doing those fast repetitions, which
doing it at pace.
Yeah,
okay.
just really doing some high rep explosiveness rather than just light multiple reps and that kind of thing. Like try some different speed of rep as well. Like we talked about slowing it down, but on the flip side, also try some more dynamic type of movements and stuff like that.
Words of wisdom. If you like what you've heard, recognise that these tips, they're free. So show your support by becoming a loyal international protein customer by jumping online, hunt our product down, and hit that buy now button. So once again, like, share, and subscribe to our podcast so we can continue to bring you these episodes from our one and only Aussie muscle guru, 3 times world champion, Christine Enville.